Hello guys, in this video we will talk about how to make an engineering leveling and how to calculate levels for different points. As we said in the previous video, the zero level in Egypt is the mean sea level inside the Alexandria harbor. Supposing that we want to find different point levels away from Alexandria harbor, so we will create a following leveling. For example, this is the Alexandria harbor and this is the bus we want to find the levels on. So first, we will place the level near to the 0 point and we will put stuff on it. This point is the first point in the leveling and we call it point 1. And the intersection between the horizontal surface which made by the level and the stuff, the intersection here, we call it reading. Say the reading was 3 meters. And we want to know the levels of the following point. We want to know the level of point 2, here point 3, point 4, point 5, point 6, point 7, and here point 8. We want to know the level of all these points. So we will move the stuff from point 1 and put it on the point 2. And the intersection between the horizontal surface and the stuff, we call it reading. Say the reading here was 2 meters. Then we move the stuff to the next point, which called point 3, and the reading was 1 meter. After that, we can't read on the other point because of topography of the earth, or sometimes because of the long distance between the level and the stuff. So we have to move the level after the third point. Thus all previous reading were taken by one device setup. So this reading we call it setup 1. In the second setup of the device, its reading should be linked to the first setup. Therefore, the last point of the first setup will be considered as the first point in the second setup. So the device will be directed into point 3 and we will read, for example, 2.6 meter. Then we will take readings in the following points: point 4, point 5, point 6, and point 7. Say point 4 was 2.1, point 5 was 1.9, point 6 was 1.6, and point 7 was 1.1. Those all readings were taken by the second device setup. So this reading in the second setup, setup 2. After that, it's not possible to read because of the long distance between the level and the point 8. So we will move the device again after point 7 and we will link the third setup by the second one, as we said previously, and we will take a reading on point 7 again, and it was 1.9. Then we will direct it to the point 8 and the reading let be 3.4 meter. So this reading took in the third setup, so this is called setup 3. So the point 3 and the point 7, we call it turning point. Why we call it turning point? Because it's the point between the first setup and the second setup, and here it's the point between the second setup and the third setup. This process we call it engineering leveling, and we make it to find the new levels of the different points. But it's not logical that every time we start from a point on the surface of the sea. So the government has put signs across the country, and these signs are called benchmark, and these marks levels are known in advance. So we will assume that the first point was a benchmark and its level was 10 meters above the sea level. Before we start with leveling calculation, first we must know the types of readings. We have three types of reading. The first type of reading we call it backside. The second type we call it intermediate side. The third type of reading we call it foresight. The backside definition is the first reading in every new setup, such as this reading. This reading is the first reading in the leveling, so we call it backside. This reading is the first reading in the setup 2, so we call it backside. And this reading is the first reading in the setup 3, so we call it backside. The second type is foresight. The foresight definition is the last reading in every setup. So this is the last reading for setup 1, so we call it foresight. This is the last reading in the setup 2, so we call it foresight. And this is the last reading for setup 3, so we call it foresight. The third type is intermediate side. The intermediate side definition is the reading between every backside and foresight. The reading between the backside and foresight, we call it intermediate side. In the setup 2, this is the backside and this is the foresight. So these three readings we call it intermediate side. This is intermediate side, intermediate side, intermediate side. Sometimes there are setups without any intermediate side, but every setup must contain at least backside and foresight. We talk in this video very important definitions. The first definition is reading. The reading is the intersection between the horizontal surface made by level and the vertical stuff. Second definition is setup. The third definition is turning point. The fourth is backside. The fifth is intermediate side. The sixth is foresight. In the next video, we will learn how to calculate the levels of unknown point using height of plane collimation method, which we call it HPC.